Thanks for joining us on lunch. This is Bloomberg Quint. I'm Harsha Subramaniam. The headlines at this hour. Markets gain momentum ahead of March series expiry. Broader markets outperform benchmarks. Heineken increases its stake in United Breweries by nearly 3%, buying Vijay Mallya's stake pledged with banks. CBDT raises the alarm as direct tax collections remains 15% short of the budgeted target for the current financial year. UK Parliament fails to arrive at a consensus on Brexit despite Theresa May promising to step down if members voted in favour of a new plan. We'll get to all of that in a moment. Quick check on how the markets have been faring today. Yatin is here with a closer look at some of those stock movers. Yatin.
Afternoon, Harsha. And if you look at the Nifty 50 at this point in time, we are 70 points up. So good going for the markets. However, we have been able to defend that 10,500 mark in the sense that on an intraday basis, we do really come above that mark and start trading there. Advance decline ratio also is quite favorable today. Almost 35 stocks on the Nifty 50 are advancing to almost 16 declining or remaining unchanged. Now, if you look at the IT sector today, we have seen some selective bounce there. So if you look at the Nifty 50, the top gainer today is HCL Technologies, 3% up for that one. Adani Ports, Indiabulls Housing Finance, Sun Pharma. Remember that stock is quite active in the future and option segment. So Sun Pharma remains, as a focus point. What's not doing well in the marketplace is certain cyclicals and metal stocks. So we have ONGC, Hindalco, all of these stocks looking weak in trade. Dr. Reddy's and Bajaj Auto are also the other stocks which are down 1.5% in trade at this point in time. Dr. Reddy's almost at the lowest point in the day. In terms of active securities, do watch out for Diwan Housing Finance. That stock is up 11%. There was an Indian Express report which said that Piramal and a clutch of private equity players are in talks to buy stake in Diwan Housing Finance. SBI on the back of good volumes today is one of the stocks which is quite active in trade. Idea Cellular also is another telecom stocks which has almost seen over 3 crore shares traded. That stock is up nearly 2% in trade now.
Jatin, thank you for that. But let's hold on. We're also talking about, as we end the financial year, we're looking at how Indian equities have fared through the financial year, particularly with the focus on mid-cap and small-cap. And they have posted negative returns this time, haven't they, Yatin?
Harsha, it's a mixed bag for the mid-cap. Select mid-caps have done extremely well for themselves. As a basket, we earlier also had a chat as to how really is the mid-cap and the small-cap end of the market not that active versus the Nifty 500. Let's talk about the Nifty mid-cap gainers at this point in time. We are talking about the period FY19 till date. We have 3 days to close for FY19, but we have calculated a broad performance of the last 360 days, or probably 250 trading sessions odd. Adani Power, Bata and Info Edge, these are the few stocks which have done extremely well. In fact, Adani Power and Bata have almost doubled to the level which we saw last March. Adani Power on the obvious reason that they got their Jharkhand SEZ approved recently. They also are working with the resolution plan for their Mundra power plant with CRC. As far as the relief tariff is concerned, Bata India, the company has posted 8 straight quarters of gross margin expansion. So that stock is doing well on the back of good earnings. Info Edge sitting on 1,800 crore cash. They have monetized assets like Zomato and Policy Bazaar, which have been favorable for the company. On the losing side, there are some obvious names. Vakrangi Limited, we have PC Jewelers, Diwan Housing, all of these stocks crumbling. In fact, all of these stocks are down over 70% as we speak in FY19. Diwan Housing, of course, is in focus. They had some liquidity issues. NBFC were in focus. So Diwan Housing is one of those NBFCs which has taken some beating. Coming to the small cap end of the market, there also we have seen select action, not as great as the mid cap index in terms of returns. But look at NIIT, VIP, and Lemon Tree. All of these stocks have delivered returns in excess of 40–45%. In fact, we have NIIT on the back of stake sale news. That stock is buzzing 50% up for that stock in the period under consideration. VIP and Lemon Tree also have been those stocks which are doing exceedingly well from the earnings perspective as well. On the losing side, again, some obvious names, some active names. Reliance Communications down 80%. Of course, they have been defaulting on various debt obligations. Because of that, the stock is under pressure. Shankara Buildings, the management cut the margin outlook, because of which we saw some sharp cash coming in. Remember, Amansa Capital is a very large institutional holder there. That also didn't help much to do with the share performance this time. And Rain Industry, again, we have marquee investors like Monish Pobra and Dolly Khanna being key investors here. Despite that, that fact, the stock is down 74% on FY19 basis, and last quarter they posted a huge loss, mostly related to the Venezuelan write-off. So these are the few stocks which have been the movers and shakers in the mid-cap and small-cap space for FY19.
Yathan, thank you for that. That's the story of this financial year. Heineken, meanwhile, has just increased its stake in United Breweries by another 3%. The Dutch brewing company spent a little over 1,000 crore to acquire a chunk of Vijay Mallya's stake, which had been pledged with lenders. Agam is here to take us through some of those details on what Heineken has done.
Right, Harsha. So the stake was bought at just a very small premium of around 1,361 to yesterday's closing price, and it still remains at a little bit of a premium to the current price. And of course, this is amounted to as much as 1,000 crores when it comes to the entire stake. This actually takes Heineken's holding in United Breweries from 43.7% to as much as 46.5%. This is an increase of around 2.8%. Now, to give you a little bit of a background, when it comes to the Enforcement Directorate, they've held Vijay Mallya's shares, and they were attached. This is on as a part of the money laundering probe, which is against him, and this was held in Yes Bank. And a little earlier this month, the Karnataka High Court actually, ordered the bank to surrender these shares to the Debt Recovery Tribunal in Bangalore, and after which this was put up, after which the recovery officer in this tribunal had put these shares up for sale and put up a notice for that. Of course, Heineken has gone in and bought some amount of these shares, and at this point in time, they have thereby increasing their shareholding to around 46.5%, just shy of that 50% mark. But this certainly paves way for the company to increase their share eventually. And again, we'll be continuing to track more developments with respect to Heineken's shareholding and what of that of Vijay Mallya's.
Agam Vakil, thank you so much for that. Automakers always offer higher discounts in March, and it's only gotten heavier this year. Car and bike makers particularly are trying all tricks in the book to woo customers, and it's working for a select few, at least on a select models. Yash is standing by, and he's done a dealer survey spread across 7 cities to find out what's really moving. Yash.
Afternoon, Harsha. So the sentiment continues to remain weak, is what we are gathering from most of these dealers. The month of March has started on a flat note, but it has started to pick up steam in the second half of the month. But in terms of offers and discounts, they continue to remain heavy in order to cash in on the year-end sales. What's doing well? We'll start with Maruti Suzuki and the cars that are doing very well for them. The newly launched 2019 WagonR model that has a waiting period of anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, as well as the fact that their new Ertiga is doing very well for them. The normal models have a waiting period of anywhere up to 4 months. If you go on for the fully loaded ZXi model, the waiting period goes up to as high as 6 months. Moving forward, what's not doing very well, or the cars which have heavy discounts, are the likes of Swift and the Desire, both of which have discounts going up to 50,000 rupees, and the likes of the Baleno Brezza, as well as the Ciaz, which has discounts of as much as 45,000 rupees. Moving on, let's also take a look at the cars from M&M, and as you could see, XUV 300, which they recently launched, is getting received very well. The deliveries have already started coming in for most of the buyers, but they continue to see waiting period of anywhere between 1 to 2 months. The Ertiga is one of the Marazzo, is one of the well-received cars as well of their recent stable. Has about exchange discount of about 15,000 rupees, no further discounts there, but heavy discounts when it comes to the likes of Scorpio, as much as 70,000 rupees, and the likes of the TUV 300 and the KUV 100, as much as 55,000 rupees there. For Tata, their Harrier, which was launched some time back, that too is doing very well for them, has a waiting period of anywhere between 2 to 3 months, but deep discounting for the likes of Nexon, Tiago, Tigor. The Nexon, which was received very well, one of the good top-selling models, top-selling cars in the sub-SUV space, that has a discount of 35,000 rupees. The Hexa has a discount of as much as 45,000 rupees, and the Tiago and the Tigor not too far behind. But moving on to the two-wheeler space, Hero MotoCorp, we'll start with Royal Enfield first, and as usual, they continue with no offers. They have a order-driven production model, so they continue to stay away from deep discounting in the market. But Hero MotoCorp continues to offer heavy discounts, as much as 1,500 rupees on most of their scooters and bikes. Bajaj Auto there, they have their 555 scheme as well as easy down payment options to lure most of the customers. And lastly, when it comes to TVS Motors, big discounts, but only when it comes to their top-end bikes. So the 160 and the 200R, they have discounts of anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 rupees each.
Yash, thank you for that. Let's move on. The CBDT member in charge of revenue has shot letters to all regional income tax chiefs asking them to ramp up tax collections. This comes on the back of about 15% shortfall in annual tax collection target with less than 1 week for the year to end. The letter accessed by PTI says that the total collection in the current financial year stands at about 10,21,251 crore as of the 23rd of March versus the targeted figure of 12 lakh crore. Anonymous donations threaten the transparency of political funding, says the Election Commission in a document filed in the Supreme Court. This was in relation to a case filed against electoral bonds introduced by the government. Upanyu Trivedi of Bloomberg News now is standing by with details of what that submission was that was made by the poll panel. Upanyu.
Yeah, the Election Commission has filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court stating that it had raised concerns earlier as well about the new norms of campaign financing. It says that the electoral bond scheme under which a financier can buy these bonds and give it to the political parties, and political parties can encash them at banks. These bonds do not carry a name, so these are anonymous donations. So the poll panel says that these large anonymous donations are against transparency in electoral process. And besides that, the rules which allow foreign companies to fund political parties if they have a majority stake in any Indian company, they also can lead to foreign companies having an influence over India's policy decisions. Now, this affidavit and these remarks from the Election Commission come weeks ahead of the start of the first phase of Indian elections and voting, which is on April 1. And any further adverse remarks from the Supreme Court may lead to further embarrassment for the Narendra Modi government, which has claimed that these rules were introduced as a measure to introduce transparency into the electoral process, which the poll panel and activists have been criticizing. The next hearing is April 2, a week ahead of the polling.
Upanyu, thank you so much for that. Let's move on. Staying with elections, Amitabh Tiwari has written a detailed piece on the state of play at Tamil Nadu and how it's impacted the centre over the years. The column on Bloomberg Quint also covers various alliances forged and subsequently broken by the two regional heavyweights, the AIADMK and the DMK, with the Congress and the BJP. Joining us to talk about this is Amitabh himself. Thank you, Amitabh, for joining us today. Let me begin this conversation by, we now have a prospect where you've got the DMK and the Congress on one hand, and the ADMK and the BJP on the other, including, give or take, a few smaller parties on both sides. Statistically speaking, who has the upper hand?
See, statistically speaking, both the parties, if you see, whichever alliance has won in Tamil Nadu has gone on to form the government at the center from 1991 to 2009 elections. Be it so that's the case. Whichever party has formed the alliance with the DMK has gone on to form the government at the center. That also holds true for 1991 to 2009, except for 1998, when AIADMK formed an alliance with BJP and swept the state and went on to form the government. What is very interesting is that these two parties have continuously or constantly hopped from one bandwagon to another. So has the smaller parties, which is PMK, MDMK and DMDK. Both the parties have formed the alliance with either Congress or BJP only once before, that was in 2004. And we all know that at that point of time, the incumbent, which was the BJP, lost the elections. Now again in 2009, both the parties have formed alliance with either BJP or Congress. Will history repeat itself? That is what we have to wait and watch.
Amitabh, you alluded to the smaller parties. You have a clutch of smaller parties, including Ramadas's PMK, Vaiko's MDMK, or Vijaykant's DMDK. Do you think they'll have a material impact on these elections, or will they only play the role of a spoiler at best?
All these parties fought for almost 12 to 15% vote share, and most of them in this election are either with AIADMK led alliance or DMK led alliance. And both these most of these parties have pockets of influence. PMK essentially north of Tamil Nadu with the Vanyars, DMDK again north of Tamil Nadu. So they will have some influence, of course, but Tamil Nadu is more about the iconic leaders, and this election is the first election after the death of both Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi. So that is also a factor which might play an important role in the results.
What have you made of the BJP's game plan in Tamil Nadu, Amitabh? You know, they're fielding about 5 candidates, obviously saying that they don't expect to do, their ambitions for TN on their own is not very high. How significant is this to their overall calculations for the BJP?
So this is a very significant state for BJP in the sense that they won only 2 seats last time.
Correct.
But what goes in favor of BJP is that it hopes that at least this alliance with AIADMK will not enable DMK, which by the trend and which by the opinion polls is expected to win the maximum seats. So it hopes that at least AIADMK and BJP with smaller parties stop a massive sweep of DMK. Mind you, AIADMK was not part of the NDA front. So whatever gains BJP has from this, even if this alliance wins 5 to 7 seats, that is +5 for NDA tally, and it will help them to somewhat compensate for the losses elsewhere in the country. So it could be beneficial to BJP in the end if they win more than 2 seats, which was their tally last time.
There's also a by-election in Tamil Nadu, nearly 18 seats, which is significant, and that could potentially unseat the existing government. So do you think the local issues will dominate the narrative?
See, local issues will dominate the narrative in the by-polls, but may not dominate the narrative in the national elections. And there is a history that wherever both these parties have allied with the national parties, they have mostly gone on to form the government at the center, with Stalin clearly backing Rahul Gandhi as the prime ministerial candidate of UPA, which other potential partners have not yet done. These elections might be contested on separate issues, which is the local elections on purely local matters. Mind you, the TTK Dinakaran factor could play a major role in the local elections, but not so much in the national elections is what I feel. And out of those 18 seats, AIADMK needs almost 4 out of 18 to have a simple majority in the state assembly.
Okay. I have one final question, Amitabh, and this is, you alluded to Stalin calling for Rahul Gandhi to become the Prime Minister. Do you anticipate the DMK to have a far greater sway at the center if indeed they end up doing well?
Yes, because going by the history, DMK alliance could win 30 out of these 39 seats. Even the opinion polls have the range between 25 to 35, depending upon which opinion poll you are looking at. And with the Congress tally also expected to be around 100, so they would be playing a major role in the government formation at the center if UPA forms the government, like they did in 2009 when they pocketed important portfolios like telecom and the environment ministry.
Sure. Amitabh, thank you so much indeed for joining us today with your perspective. Amitabh Tiwari, political commentator on the situation in Tamil Nadu and the dynamics at play. There was no sign of a breakthrough in the Brexit deadlocks as US lawmakers failed to agree on an alternative to Theresa May's plans. The parliament rejected 8 possible options to vote. Kathleen Hayes reports.
She put out a statement saying she's prepared to leave her job early to do the right thing for the country and for the party. She went on to say this in her statement. If we could take a look at that now. I ask everyone in this room to back the deal so we can complete our historic duty to deliver on the decision of the British people and leave the EU with a smooth and orderly exit. So what happened after that? Boris Johnson, one of her big opponents on the deal, former mayor of London, a member of parliament for many years, saying, oh, I'll support it. Ian Duncan Smith, another top conservative, I'll support it too. But the Democratic Unionist Party said, no, we still won't support it. Theresa May needs those votes if she would ever get the vote passed. So that was the end of that. And regardless of what happens with this deal, her future looking more uncertain than ever as we get to this impasse and stay there.
High-level U.S. trade negotiators, meanwhile, including the U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, are in Beijing to resume talks with China. Malcolm Scott gets us the highlights.
I mean, we've got Mnuchin and Lighthizer in Beijing today and tomorrow for further talks. There's then follow-up talks with Liu He, who's the sort of Chinese go-to guy for these talks these days, scheduled to be in Washington from next week. So, you know, the talks are on. The chatter is that perhaps there's, you know, perhaps even if they're close to making some sort of deal on paper, there's still thorny issues outstanding. You know, Mr. Lighthizer and others have talked about some of those, the issues around IT, the issues around enforcement. They seem to be the two sticking points even still. So the question now is, if we do get some sort of deal from the backroom guys, something that Lighthizer, Mnuchin and their Chinese equivalents can agree to, is that the full deal, or is there still going to be questions that only Xi and Trump can really agree to? That's the one issue that's going to keep markets on edge for a little while longer yet. But, you know, hopefully we're getting towards some sort of agreement here.
Malcolm Scott from Bloomberg News. Out of time on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.